Good evening and welcome to this forum for the City of Lake Elmo City Council. My name is Liz Nordling and I will be the moderator tonight. I also do not live in Lake Elmo. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I welcome the candidates, those who have joined us here at Stillwater City Hall, and our cable audience. As a trusted volunteer organization, the League of Women Voters does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. We sponsor forums to provide voters an opportunity to hear candidates' views on issues of interest in the upcoming election. For example, many Minnesotans may not be aware that we will be voting on a constitutional amendment this fall. Currently, the state legislature sets their own salaries. The proposed amendment would set up a citizen council to determine the salary of state legislatures. Information on this topic is available at the sign-in table. You can also find information online at the Secretary of State's website or at www.minvotes.org. Click on What's on My Ballot and you will find a link to the proposed amendment. This forum is being broadcast live by Valley Access Channel 16. Playback times are available at the sign-in table. It can also be found online at www.vactv.org. The forum policies are spelled out in the handouts. If you have a written question for the candidates or need a card to write one on, please raise your hand. Candidates will begin with 1.5-minute opening statements. Following that, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer a question. Our timer will hold up a card indicating when their time is up, and the speaking order will begin in alphabetical order and then be rotated randomly thereafter. We have 4 candidates for the City Council. They are Justin Bloyer, Brett Emmons, Christine Nelson, and Ben Roth. We'll begin with opening statements, and we will start with Justin Bloyer.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and all who have decided to join us either in person or on TV this evening for our candidate forum. As many of you know, I've been a lifelong resident of Lake Elmo. My family moved here in 1983 when my sister and I were very young. After attending Stillwater High School, I graduated from the University of St. Thomas with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. While attending college, I also put myself through flight school at downtown St. Paul Airport. After graduation, I worked for 2 regional airlines before being hired with Delta Airlines in 2014. In 2001, after September 11th, I was furloughed from American Eagle Airlines, and while temporarily out of work, my wife and I started a business we continue to grow and run today. After 12 years away, Dana and I decided to move back to Lake Elmo to raise our children. We moved back to Lake Elmo for the same reasons everyone has come here. The small town feel, open spaces, large lots, and plenty of recreational opportunities. In 2011, I became interested in city politics when I began following the looming Met Council issue. It seemed Lake Elmo was stuck into the rut of fighting the Met Council and not make any constructive headway. I ran with the promise of getting rid of the Met Council mandate, which Mayor Pearson and I removed from the city in 2014, and I ran on building a functional government responsive and open to the taxpayers of Lake Elmo. I stand before you today asking for your vote and continued support to allow the restoration of transparency, civility, and fiscal responsibility to our city. Thank you.
Now with his opening statement is Brett Emmons.
Thank you very much for holding this forum and everyone that's attended here and setting this up so we can express our views and let people get to know who we are and what we're thinking. I definitely see a very bright future for the community. We are challenged with growing, but I think that also opens up a lot of opportunities. I think to tackle those challenges, we are going to need a lot of skills that I think I bring. Leadership, high level of transparency, collaboration across multiple units of government, the council, and other community organizations. Those are all very important to going into this next phase of the community. But I think we need to tackle these challenges with a sense of creativity and a long-term view. What we're doing now is going to have a large impact for many, many years in the city of Lake Elmo. And I think this needs to be done very consistent with Lake Elmo's unique values and character. I think that is why we all live here. Many of us have decided to call this home. Myself, I'm a longtime resident of Lake Elmo and raised our children here, and so I think we've put down roots. A lot of us have roots here. We've brought up our families. We enjoy our natural areas and try to sustain those as best we can. We try to come together as a community, and we care about our community. That's why all of you are here tonight too, so that's very appreciated. I think we have been distracted quite a bit lately with the bickering and the bad press. I think we really need to get back to what the real issues are facing the community, which are growth, and how we're going to manage that. I think we need to get beyond this internal strife and bring in a fresh perspective, and that is something that I definitely do. I don't come with baggage or hard feelings towards these fights. I think, in fact, if you even ask the existing mayor, the current mayor, the mayoral candidate, past mayors, and council members, you'll find that everyone has found me respectful, thoughtful, and very good to work with as a team player.
Thank you. Now with her opening statement is Christine Nelson.
Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this event and for inviting me to be a part of it. I'd also like to extend a greeting to my fellow candidates for City Council and to thank them for their shared passion and commitment to the City of Lake Elmo. I look forward to a healthy and honest conversation tonight about the future of our community. To those of you here tonight in attendance or watching this forum from home, thank you for caring enough to be involved and your willingness to hear from each of us on the issues of the city. I sincerely believe your desire to learn more about the candidates wishing to represent you is exactly the sort of due diligence that will lead to a better and brighter future. Finally, I'd like to share a little bit about myself and why I'm running. I've had the great privilege and honor of meeting many of you over the last few months, and it only confirms what I've already believed to be true. The current dysfunction we have seen since January 2015 is not indicative of who we are, and it's a misrepresentation of all that is good in Lake Elmo. My greatest goal as a City Council candidate is to repair and restore the trust that should exist between a City Council representative and the constituents that they should be honored to serve. I'm not coming with any other personal agenda than that, simply to return civility and a functioning government to Lake Elmo. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with his opening comments, Ben Roth.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this candidate forum. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. I think we can all agree that we are broken at City Hall. We have a level of dysfunction and mistrust that has reached heights I've not seen before. Fake websites, fake Facebook pages, sheriff's investigations, rumor spreading, scathing articles in the news, and the list goes on. We have the opportunity to fix what's going on in this election. I think our best chance is by electing 2 new council members to the council. I appreciate what Ann and Justin have contributed, but I feel it's time that both moved on. I think we can also agree that underlying this issue of dysfunction is a pace of development issue that has not gone away in Lake Elmo. 10 years ago, our city did come together. I was on the planning commission at that time. We brought some folks kicking and screaming, Mr. DeLapp in particular, but we got together. We created a comprehensive plan that we agreed on, that we would follow the pace, we'd be consistent with the pace of development that the Met Council desired. In 2013, that plan was tossed out the window. The accelerator was put down on development, and we brought in 1,800 new homes in 18 months. I'm surprised that I'm here. And it's fascinating and ironic that I have to have a position to hold back development to the pace that the Met Council has established for us. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now begin with questions, and this is a question that was given to the candidates ahead of time. It'll go first to Christine Nelson. What are your priorities with respect to current issues in Lake Elmo?
Thank you. Lake Elmo deserves to be represented by leaders who are collaborative, honest, and professional. These are principles I've embraced in my 25-plus years of professional experience in both private industry and the nonprofit world, and in working with boards and their constituents alike. True leadership can only happen when the needs of citizen and staff are consistently put first. Voices of dissent are respected, not silenced, and trust is established from working together. I'd like to see a full return to the transparency that existed 2 years ago with taped committee meetings and workshops. I don't think council members should sit on committees, and it is a conflict of interest in my opinion. But of course, I would say they're more than welcome to attend and observe. I think there's been an alarming breakdown of checks and balances since 2015, and that must return to restore the trust. Finally, the professional city staff must be supported and allowed to do their job to their fullest capabilities. The horrific micromanaging and leadership from Veer style since 2015 must be put to a swift and immediate end. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now goes to Justin Bloyer.
My three tenets that I'm running on are the things that need to be implemented, I would say almost immediately. We need to restore transparency to our government. As Ms. Nelson just mentioned, we have a high level of distrust, and we just saw a news article in Star Tribune regarding Orono. When you stop recording meetings, people start to distrust their government. We need to get that back almost immediately. Civility. Mr. Roth is correct. We have a low level of civility going on. I'd like to restore the initiatives that we had prior to 2 years ago with Speak Your Piece and getting everyone on board voluntarily to act in a proper way. We've always had a lot of discord in Lake Elmo, and over the last 4 years, up till 2 years ago, the tone in Lake Elmo has changed. And finally, fiscal responsibility. We are spending down our reserves to try and give tax cuts, and I'm all in favor of tax cuts, but we need to do tax cuts by cutting government spending, not by borrowing into our reserves.
Thank you. The question now goes to Ben Roth.
Working to eliminate the dysfunction of City Hall has got to be our top priority. To that end, I would take the following actions. I'd build and strengthen my relationships. If Mr. Bloyer is voted back to the council, and I'm there as well, I'll vote to remove that censure immediately. We start this election, we've got to start fresh and take that type of stuff off the table. We need to engage our staff to make sure they have the tools, resources, and skills to do their jobs the very best. Begin work on a shared vision for the community, and then visit with the League of Minnesota Cities and get that deductible reduced. And irrespective of who's elected, if I'm there, I will give my all to whomever is in that mayor's chair and whoever is with me. I'm going to ask them for their very best as well. And we need to reunite our community, and it starts at City Hall.
Thank you. The question now goes to Brett Emmons.
I think there are many distractions that are out there, and we've already touched on those a lot already this evening. I think really the key issue underlying our community and where our priorities need to be is with looking at harnessing and guiding development in a positive way that is truly reflective of what our vision is for Lake Elmo. And I think that, to me, in synopsis, is to put it from the point of view of quality. We want quality growth. We don't necessarily want quantity. And I do have concerns that the incumbent bloc, who had the majority in 2 years ago, came through with a fairly aggressive, fast-paced development approach. And I think not quantity, but quality is what we're looking for. So I think we need to focus this energy, the positive things we can get from Lake Elmo, from growth in Lake Elmo, and realize that the decisions we make over the next 5 years are going to have an impact 50 years from now. We're shaping our future, and we need to be very diligent about that. I think it's a little bit analogous to you raise your children, you need to give them some boundaries, you need to give them guidance. And I think above all, you need to challenge them to be better, to strive for something better than what they even think they can. And I think our community can also have that positive vision where we can set high standards and we can ask ourselves to be better than we are and not just kind of go for the easy, just because for a developer, for them to produce the same generic product and stamp it out over and over again. That may be the easy path, but I think we should go for what we think is special and matches Lake Elmo's character.
Thank you. The next question was submitted online, and it goes first to Ben Roth. What is your day job, and would your job or employer pose any conflict of interest where decisions are made at either the recommending, which is board, committee, or commission, or governing level?
Thank you. I have the opportunity to work with Security and Financial Group. Many of you may know that it is Minnesota Mutual Companies in downtown St. Paul. I lead a national sales team working with insurance and financial advisors across the country. Really don't believe there would be any conflict that would come up in our city. So just want to give everything I've got to Lake Elmo.
Thank you. The question now goes to Brett Emmons.
I'm a water resources engineer. I've started my company about 20 years ago, Emmons and Oliver Resources. We're a leader actually regionally and nationally in engineering and green design, and I think these skills are very important for the kind of challenges. I work in my day-to-day job is to work with a lot of communities that are experiencing growth and trying to understand how to balance smart growth, but not also tear up and mess up why everyone is moving to the town. So I think that gives me a lot of insights. I don't see any conflicts of interest. I would obviously not work for the city in that kind of capacity, but I do feel like those skills can be brought to bear in terms of the kind of decisions and the kind of things that we have to wrestle with. And I think we've touched on this too, that there are some internal issues of management and leadership, and I think my background of working with a company, being the CEO, understanding how you have to work with people, not let your ego get in the way, and build a team approach is what is also sorely needed in Lake Elmo. I think we have too many big personalities, and we need to get back to just having an effective organization that gets decisions done and does the city's business.
Thank you. The question now goes to Justin Bloyer.
Thank you. My day job is I'm an airline pilot for Delta Airlines, which doesn't lead to any conflict of interest with the city of Lake Elmo at all. In the job, I work with a lot of different personalities on a day-to-day basis, whether they're the captain or the flight attendants or operations on the ground or in the air. And I bring that skill of being able to work with many different personality types and to get things done and accomplished in a safe and reasonable manner.
Thank you. Question now goes to Christine Nelson.
Thank you. I do work with American Red Cross. I'm a major gifts officer, so that means I'm fundraising and specifically with corporate groups and high-end donors. And there's absolutely no conflict of interest because the Red Cross does not allow their employees to run for political office if it's a partisan office. So being that this is a nonpartisan position, they have very strict policies, which I adhere to, clearly. In terms of leadership style, I've touched on it already. The micromanagement that I think we see happening right now is paralyzing and crippling to the staff. I understand how to work with team members. I know how to build teams. I work with boards. I work with constituents. I work with volunteers. I work with donors. I work with corporate groups. I get it. And I can tell you across the board, it doesn't matter. Micromanagement and a fear from leadership style is ineffective. So no conflict, and that's my leadership beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes first to Brett Emmons, and this also was submitted online. What are your thoughts on the decline of businesses in the old village, and why are so many of those businesses willing to display signs for certain candidates?
That's a very interesting question, and one I've thought about. First, just the business district, I think, is a gem in the rough that we have in Lake Elmo. I think, this is one of those opportunities that while I have my reservations about too much growth, I think growth can also add some opportunities and vibrancy for our downtown, and I think that's a huge plus. I've been involved in past planning efforts and various efforts at the city level to try to have that kind of vibrancy in downtown. I think it is also interesting that there are so many signs. Like I said, the stakes are high, I think, in this election of what we decide is going to cast our future. And that's kind of, those big decisions are also reflected in all the big signs that seem to be out there plastered all over the place. And I guess I fear that we've kind of, this election sort of is symptomatic of what we've kind of declined into, where we are focusing on the negative and the slinging of barbs here and there and innuendo and half-truths. And this to me is just another continuation of what we said we don't want. But at the same time, when I talk to those businesses, many of them say, you're a great guy, I think I'd support you, but I'm just so upset and so mad that I can hardly contain myself. And that's the kind of mentality I think that's being cultivated.
Thank you. The question now goes to Christine Nelson.
Thank you. I guess I clearly, I don't think any of the candidates sitting up here are pro-growth. We want to see rapid growth or growth at all, but there's a couple of us up here, I think, who are a little more realistic about how that is going to happen and being thoughtful about it and being willing to listen and a respect for the businesses and the business owners that are part of our community. Clearly, I think they feel like maybe they haven't been listened to recently in the last 2 years, and it takes, again, the willingness to listen. And I actually saw quite a few of those business owners come and speak on behalf of Dean Zuliger, and it seemed to fall on deaf ears. So just listen and pay attention and respect them.
Thank you. The question now goes to Ben Roth.
Thank you. I have the opportunity to work with entrepreneurs and small business owners every day at work, and I know it does take active listening with them. We really need to figure ourselves out at City Hall, get a functioning government, and embrace those business owners. We have the opportunity to build a fantastic downtown community. We're bringing the infrastructure there. We need to invest in that business community. I know that they have had some frustration based on the signs that we see throughout the community, and I don't think we've had the opportunity to get to know each and every one of them. But I know that if we have the opportunity to really invest in that downtown, we could have a fabulous small city, if you will, of Lake Elmo.
Thank you. The question now goes to Justin Bloyer.
I can understand the frustration that the business owners have downtown. One of our mayoral candidates put an ad out in the Stillwater Gazette that said, "I need 4/5." And if you thought 3/5 was bad, 4/5 will be worse. And the only way to get the 4/5 would be to elect two of us up here that toe the line. The business owners are extremely nervous about that because, unlike some of my colleagues here, I don't think that us, the government, you or taxpayers investing in the businesses is how we get them to grow. We need to have rooftops, and we need to follow the comprehensive plan that Mr. Roth, Ms. Fleeflet designed in 2005. All the council did in 2015 was recognize that we need to implement the 7-year-old or 8-year-old comp plan. Otherwise, we were going to get the whiff fees of $28 million that would have been due today if we would have done no development. So there was absolutely no development between 2005 and 2013. We just executed the plan that they asked for. So if there's any questions, that would be why where the numbers came from. It was designed by people sitting up here.
Thank you. Does anyone have any additional comments they would like to make? Yes, Mr. Emmons.
I think a couple comments came up about following the comp plan. I think that is interesting in that there was a phasing, my understanding is there was a phasing in that, and that has been more or less ignored through that growth spurt of 2 years ago when the incumbent was in the majority. And I think it's also interesting that we were fighting so hard to not have this onerous Met Council goal, but right now we have a growth number that is actually higher than what Met Council is recommending for us. And I have not seen the incumbent from the council work hard or collaboratively to try to bring that number back down to something that we think is reasonable. It still can support the infrastructure that we need, but I think that would be a positive way of looking at it, and I just don't see that interest in doing that. I hear a lot of talk about we need to have growth, we need to pay for the bills. I think we have a lot of people that want to live here. I don't think our problem is trying to get people to come into town. I think it's managing that growth.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I would. What I'd add is that less concerned about the development that we've done. It's the position that the Pearson-Bloyer majority took in 2013 with our bond investors, where they indicated that they wanted to see nearly 3,000 acres, all of the I-94 corridor, all of the village, developed in 5 to 7 years. That's 3,000 acres in 5 years. That's really why I'm, part of the reason I am here tonight and running for office is that's my concern, is not what's in the ground, it's what they think may be coming.
Thank you.
If I may.
Christine?
Yeah. I guess I'm confused because I thought Justin Bloyer was one of the few council members sitting there who actually voted against the concept plan, if I'm not mistaken, for the Royal Golf Course and 200 some homes that would be built. So that seems like kind of rapid growth. But that aside, I guess I also am confused. I feel like I've heard Councilmember Bloyer and Mayor Pearson advocate for the fact that we use the moratorium as a time to kind of look at that comp plan and look at some of those zoning issues and whatnot. And that's not happening, and I don't think it's their fault. Thank you.
Mr.
Sure.
Bloyer?
The fact of the matter is we've had growth of about 125 homes per year, and we've got 2 years into it. So this rapid growth that we talk about is levied out over 10 years at a minimum. When Mr. Roth pulls out of a bonding pack that we send to Chicago to try and make sure the residents get 2% on their infrastructure loans that they have to take versus 3%, we're going to make it sound as bullish as we possibly can. So discussions with bonding agencies is for the best case of the city. If every single acre of I-94 was developed in the old village, we still have 75% of our land open space in Lake Elmo.
Thank you. We'll move on to another question. Only one rebuttal per.
Okay.
And the next question will go first to Ben Roth. Have you or your campaign accepted financial contributions from non-residents who have property development interests in Lake Elmo? If yes, please comment.
No, absolutely not. Have not accepted, haven't gotten a lot of contributions, welcome more, but certainly not from many developers that have property development interests in Lake Elmo.
Thank you. Now it goes to Brett Emmons.
The simple answer, no, I definitely have not.
Thank you. Justin Bloyer.
I've not accepted any campaign donations from anyone who does not own land in Lake Elmo that looks to develop.
Okay, Christine.
Same answer for me.
All right, that was an easy one. Let's move to the next question, which will go first to Justin Bloyer. What is your definition of rural or special where Lake Elmo is concerned?
Well, I would never use the word term special to describe Lake Elmo. That's it's almost demeaning or elementary. But rural, to me, we all talk about being rural in Lake Elmo, but we're not rural. Rural are cows and barbed wire fences and bobcats and people being able to do what they want with their property. The reality of it is we have open space developments that claim to be rural, but they're large homes on small lots with an outlot that gives them space. We have 2.5 acre lots. Again, that's not rural anymore. Rural is tracts of land, 50 acres. And you're allowed to do what you want. We are no longer a rural city, and it's unfortunate, but the time has passed. We're a couple miles from the Beltway. We have to recognize that, and we have to do the best we can to move ourselves forward and not keep dragging our feet thinking we're back in 1890.
Thank you. The question now goes to Christine Nelson.
I guess rural character has been bandied about quite a bit, and I think has is the word special. For me, it's not open space, or a development that looks just like mine that makes a community special. It's this right here. It's engagement of the community, whether it be as a citizen, a business owner, someone who just comes to Lake Elmo to enjoy the parks and whatnot. That's what makes it special. And listening to each other. I don't know that I would necessarily qualify rural as being the only thing that makes Lake Elmo special. I think that's a disservice to the community. But really, based on everything I've seen in the last few months, it's the people that make it special. And bring the character. Thank you.
Thank you. Question now goes to Ben Roth.
I like to think of Lake Elmo as unique. We do have a lot of passion from our community members, all of you who are here this evening, and it does make it such a special place. Today it's not quite what I had imagined when we moved in 12 years ago to raise our children in Lake Elmo, but it certainly has the potential to be a fabulous place. We don't have to build and develop in the same way that other communities do. We can choose to do what we want to do with Lake Elmo, build a special place, let the other communities in Washington County do what they do, and together, working together, making Washington County one of the best counties in all of America to reside in. And that's what I want to do with Lake Elmo, is make it a unique place that contributes to the county.
Thank you. Brett Emmons.
I do think that's a tough term. The rural has been bandied about. I think there is something very unique about our hopes and aspirations for the community. I'm not sure rural really captures it very well. I understand Councilmember Bloyer's comments on that. I think it's also telling, though, for him to say, well, but we have to accept the fact we're in the Beltline, our die is cast. We now have a new path. And I guess I don't necessarily believe that. I've talked to a lot of people in the community over the years, and they all say, our goal is not to be another sprawling suburban community. Those are great when those are pro-growth communities like Woodbury, other ones like that. I appreciate that, but that's not for Lake Elmo. And we can be creative. We can be innovative. There are a lot of communities out there that have kept their value by being a little bit different and doing things in a good way. And I think the other risk is if we just kind of let the development community come in and set the ground rules and where we're headed, I think we're going to end up with a fairly generic suburban sprawl kind of look where you won't know exactly which community you're in. So I think we can challenge ourselves, like I said in the opening, that there are things we can do to make it better. That's what I do in my day job. So I think there's lots of opportunities.
Thank you. Any additional comments, anyone? All right, we'll move on to the next question, and it goes to Brett Emmons first. What are your thoughts on the current state of transparency in regard to meeting minutes and videotaping of various committees and commissions?
I haven't spent my nights reading all of these minutes, but I think if there's a perception that there's an transparency, then there's an issue, and we need to do better. The community needs to do better at getting out ahead of that and making sure that all the avenues are available for people to get access to those resources. I think earlier one of the council members, Christine, mentioned that there shouldn't be council members on committees. That would be actually kind of unusual. Most cities that have committees have council members, but it may be more than one or two, and they should definitely be open, and they should be something that people can see and view. So I think, obviously, if we have some issues of trust, the best way to tackle that is just to take it head on and make sure you're taking the extra effort to get the message out there in whatever form that may take, so that people know what is going on, that you are working in their best interest and you are trying to represent them as best you can with the constraints and the issues that you have in front of you.
Thank you. Ben Roth?
I would look to understand what other communities, neighboring communities are doing in this regard. I haven't studied the issue significantly as to what Woodbury or Oakdale do with respect to minutes, but do they record every minute and publish detailed minutes? I don't have a good idea of that, but if they do, I personally would have no problem following that exact same standard. There's no reason we shouldn't be transparent with respect to all of our residents.
Thank you. Christine Nelson?
Thank you. With all due respect, Mr. Emmons, I think you actually could stay up all night reading the minutes and you wouldn't be able to capture the big issues because they're not captured in the meeting minutes. And that's part of the problem. I think we have some boards and committees that think some sort of abbreviated version of minutes is acceptable. It's not. I think we should return to recording committees, meetings, actually commission meetings, committee meetings, workshops, and I guess I would prefer minutes that capture the full scope of the meeting, because I can't go to meetings at 8 a.m. on Friday. I work outside the home. It's my only way of being able to keep up with things. So, and I am interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Bloyer?
It's interesting because we don't want to be Woodbury, but we'll use Woodbury as an example. Let's see if they're recording or not. I'm in favor of recording all committee meetings, all commission meetings, making sure all commission meetings and council meetings and workshops are broadcast like it was 2 years ago. What's interesting from one of my colleagues here who is the head of the library board, he mentioned high level of transparency and extra effort. In the Stillwater Gazette, you presided over a meeting where specific issues were kept from the public, so they didn't know you were going to spend money on attorneys and do things behind the council's back. I mean, this is the kind of transparency we're talking about. When things like this happen, that is what erodes the citizens' trust. And to sit up here and use the buzzwords, I think actions speak louder than words. I've been calling for the transparency. Other people have been hiding and covering things up.
Thank you. Additional comments, anyone? Brett Emmons?
Couple comments. On the last comment, I think there was a recent thing that now I've gotten back in town. I'd caught up on the Stillwater article. I think the obvious piece missing there is that the discussion about the possibility of looking for an attorney has been on the agenda, has been discussed, and has been in the minutes for the last 4 or 5 months. The fact that it's a repeat topic that has come up does not surprise me very much that we missed that, but that was a miss on our part, and we'll do better and make sure that we have those kinds of things in there. And there was also, it seemed from reading it, it was implied that they were given a carte blanche decision, which they were not.
Justin Bloyer?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't have exactly who it was, whether it was Ms. Linder or Mr. DeLapp, but someone specifically said, do not put these in the minutes, and you presided over that meeting.
Anyone
That's
else?
a lack of transparency in my book.
Thank you. Anyone else? Christine Nelson?
I guess I would agree with Councilmember Bloyer. I find it unacceptable, and no matter how many times something shows up on an agenda, when there's a directive to go out and do something different or make another forward motion with that particular item, I want to know about it, and I want it in the minutes, or I want it recorded. That's it.
It was not an action. It's misrepresented in the paper.
You've had your chance. Mr. Roth?
I guess if we're going to talk about transparency, then let's talk about the sheriff's investigation and Mr. Bloyer pleading the Fifth Amendment when asked whether he released a report to anyone else other than the council members. That's not a great example of transparency in my book.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and it goes first to Christine Nelson. The lack of civility was noted by the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust Board in their decision to increase the city's insurance deductible, yet the City Council eliminated the City's Civility Initiative in January of 2015. Would you please comment on that?
Thank you. I'd love to. Actually, that was an appalling, one of the first moves to see from our new city council majority to remove the Speak Your Piece initiative. I was appalled that that was something that needed to be one of the first actions by that council member and that council majority. Having said that, clearly it was a red flag as to what we could expect in the next 2 years. And I think it's really a shame that we can't celebrate the principles that were put forward in Speak Your Piece. And honestly, I would love to see it come back, not just in concept, but in practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Bloyer.
The Speak Your Piece initiative was put together by Mike Reeves and I believe Dean Zuliger with Alyssa McLeod's help. It was a celebrated initiative. They went and gave speeches and worked with kids at the elementary school to show how to get along. I mean, Lake Elmo, of course, has had a long sordid past of not being able to get along, whether it's citizens or council members. But we had a group come in, all of our commission members, all of our committee members came in and signed this, and we really, for 2 years, did have a much better atmosphere and decorum than we'd ever had in the past. It was saddening that the first thing, I believe it was the first meeting, if not the first, the second, that the Speak Your Piece initiative was removed, and that was a telling sign of what was to come for the next 2 years.
Thank you. Britt Emmons.
I did have a privilege of a stint on the council. I also served with Dean Zuliger. I think if you reflect, I think there's what you put on paper, and that's good, and those are important things to make sure you are keeping in front of everybody's eyes and their attention. But I think it's also how people act, and I'm not sure that people on all sides have really been able to act in a civil way and be able to get away from the dysfunction. I know I've had a couple people comment to me that back when I was on the council, even though we had a lot of different personalities and we had strong personalities and differences of opinion, we expressed those and we stuck to those, but we still were able to work respectfully together and we weren't always in the newspaper with negative headlines. And that's the kind of respectful, open approach that I take to want to bring to the council, and I really think I can make a difference in terms of how we behave together.
Thank you. Ben Roth.
Yes, I can't disagree with what the other speakers have said this evening. It's, civility, being able to speak at council is our right. We need to see about making a change. This council is just simply too dysfunctional. We need to get a couple of new folks in there and change up the dynamic and have the opportunity to work together. Right now, it's just simply not working, and we need to fix this.
Additional comments, anyone? Yes, Mr.
Sure.
Bloyer.
We absolutely wouldn't have any dysfunction if these two gentlemen won, because it would be a lockstep council with a flea-flip majority, which would be the absolute worst thing for the city of Lake Elmo. The Speak Your Piece initiative was a good initiative. Everyone tried to follow it, and we didn't have any dysfunction during the first 2 years of my tenure on the city council, as you didn't have. This all started in January of 2015, so we can't say that this, we can pinpoint exactly when this dysfunction began.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Roth?
Yeah, I take some exception to that it would be a lockstep council. Those who know me know I'm my own man. I will not be following Julie or Jill or Mike or Justin if elected, or Christine or Brett. I'm going to be independent-minded, and look at things, evaluate them objectively. And whether I'm supporting Mike or Justin, Christine, Brett, that's what I'm going into council with, is an open mind. And will not be voting in lockstep with Ms. Fliflet and Lundgren. Thank you.
Ms. Nelson or Mr. Emmons? Mr. Emmons?
Yes, I think that was directed my way. I think that, I'm not sure whether to laugh or be insulted. I think that I'm a very independent-minded person. I'm a very analytical person. I work respectfully, but that doesn't mean that I toe the line with someone. My hope is to get on the council and bring back more of a thoughtful decision process and not to operate so much on emotion and battling. And as I said before, I think these kind of comments that are coming out are exactly the kind of trying to cast us into camps. There's one warring faction trying to bludgeon the other warring faction, and I reject that. I come in as an independent person, and I'm not going to toe anyone's line, but I am going to try to bring in more civility and more working in a collaborative way.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson?
Thank you. Again, with all due respect, I guess, given the fact that Councilmember Fleetfoot has put it out in her advertisement that she has running for mayor, and in her collateral, she wants and needs a 4/5 majority. I can assure you, I'm not going to be part of that 4/5. I do not think Councilmember Bloyer would be part of that 4/5. Do the math. That leaves 2 council candidates who would be that 4/5 majority. Either that or she kind of jumped ahead of herself. So I'm not sure if there is, an alliance there or not.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and it goes first to Justin Bloyer. Sure. Lake Elmo was once known for its well-planned growth and its developments. Now we've had an unfettered building, many standards eliminated, and crowded cheek-by-jowl houses. We have now even exceeded the Metro Council numbers. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are we absolutely have not exceeded any Met Council numbers. We've had about 250 homes built in the last 2 years, which is hardly exceeding Met Council numbers. As far as the cheap, I don't remember what the adjective was, by-jowl?
Cheek-by-jowl.
Cheap-by-jowl homes. I've had the opportunity to meet, and I see some people who live in the cheap-by-jowl homes out there, and I've had opportunities to be in those cheap homes. And so I'd ask anyone who wrote that to go down and go into some of those cheap homes. I mean, the ones that Ben Roth sacrificed his development for. Base prices are $400,000. They're beautiful homes. They're homes that most people that are currently in the Lake Elmo couldn't afford. I'm just offended that a question like that would be asked at a debate. If those homes are not good enough, then by all means, show me the 30 years of planning that everyone's done and show me what's better, because nothing's been executed up to this point.
Thank you, and I will clarify it is cheek.
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 Okay.
By jowl.
Cheek by jowl.
Not cheap. Cheek. And the question now goes to Brett Emmons.
I think we do need to be careful about trying to cast this into us versus them. I do think, though, that we have had a different mindset that set in for a while, that it was better to get quantity, not to worry about the quality. I think there are great communities like Woodbury that have a certain sense, and I think developers come in there, they know their product, they come around to all the suburbs, they kind of want to stick with what they know they can do efficiently and cost effectively, and so they're going to tend to give you a very repetitive, nice product, but a very repetitive kind of product. And I think in Lake Elmo, we can certainly ask for something better than that. We can set standards and we can look for something that is more reflective of our character, more building our community, because I really think that is our future. That our home values, our community's attractiveness is going to be because we have that unique sense. There are certain suburbs in the Twin Cities that have just always held that mystique of where people want to live there because they are known as well-kept and very nice suburbs. And that is a bit of my concern, is that we fall into more of this generic kind of approach to development.
Thank you. Question now goes to Ben Roth.
I'd agree with that. We have to be careful not to just do what every other community does and create blocks of homes. I'm still taken aback by the cheap as well. I would never use that to refer to somebody's house. But we have the opportunity to keep Lake Elmo unique and special, and to build unique communities of homes, even affordable every price. We have a wide variety of residents in Lake Elmo at all income levels. And we need diverse housing, and it's just nice to have some character in our homes and keep it that unique, special place that we all call Lake Elmo.
Thank you. Christine Nelson.
I don't know what cheek by jowl means. I'm going to assume it's an insult. And I'm just going to say this is exactly the sort of judgment that I am so tired of hearing from people who live in one development, making a judgment about another development. Maybe you like block housing, maybe you don't. You know what? I live in, I guess, technically what is just barely outside the old village. I live in a development that was built in the 1970s, a lot of split levels. You could characterize that as block housing, I guess. Same, similar styles, one by one. For me and my family, it represented a means to getting our family into a wonderful community, to raise our family and give them the chance that they should have at a wonderful childhood. So I deeply resent the judgment that's implied with that sort of categorization.
Thank you. Additional comments, anyone? We'll move on to the next question. It goes first to Brett Emmons. Do you have any suggestions regarding the council's ability to work together and to decrease the time meetings take?
I think there's a lot of things the council can do. I think, I have a wise person that I knew had worked and served on many city councils and other boards, said that when you are worried about following all the rules and doing all the things in print, you've probably realized you've already off track. You should be able to have a civil meeting where you're not having to rely on external resources or going back to Robert's rules every time something comes up. So that's obviously a symptom that people are not just being reasonable. And I do think we need to put aside the petty past and all the things that I keep hearing coming up through the elections, that we keep trying to stir up past harms and past grudges. And I feel like coming in with a fresh face, and as has been said, I think some fresh faces are needed there. I think even well-meaning people have such deep-seated unhappiness with other people that they're working with that I don't see them functioning in a reasonable way. They tend to take stances just to be on the opposite side of the other. So I think that I've seen that across the board with the council, and I think we just need some fresh approach to the council.
Thank you. Ben Roth?
Yeah, when it gets personal, that's problematic, and unfortunately, we face a council that has gotten very personal, and we need to find ways to leave that personal stuff at the door and work effectively as a council. So it simply comes down to each individual council member wanting in their heart to be able to create the very best team of council members that we can. We can have differences, we can have politics, but let's not make it personal. Let's have the opportunity to get to know one another. I don't know why as a council you can't go out afterwards and have a cocktail together or have, your beverage of choice and get to know one another. Unfortunately, we just can't seem to pull that together today, and I'd love to see us have the opportunity just to get to know one another personally and build that camaraderie amongst the council.
Thank you. Christine Nelson?
Thank you. To decrease meeting minutes, goodness sake, just take a look at any city council meeting. The histrionics, the points of order, the sign, the dramatic, it is absolutely, again, paralyzing and crippling. And I think if we would conduct ourselves as we would in a workplace or hopefully our homes and have that expectation of each other and modeling the behavior we wish to see, we could probably greatly reduce those meeting minutes by a good deal. I think also at the last council meeting there was an agenda item to remove council-driven agenda items. There's a unprecedented number of council-driven agenda items. I don't think that really decreases meeting minutes, so there is that. And in terms of not being personal, I wish Mr. Roth would have got to know me before he published in a flyer that evidently I'm part of the Fast Growth Pro-Growth Council. He's never asked me that. He's never talked to me, so I'd be more than happy to tell him, but that felt personal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blair.
Sure, to reduce meeting minutes, well, we have to get rid of the petty past, as Mr. Emmons said, but that comes along with the us versus them mentality. We need to be inclusive of all of our town, not just our specific neighborhoods. We talk about the rotten housing and whatever we're saying about here, and then not being personal. Mr. Roth talks about how he's going to be non-personal, and then it's just an attack piece. We have to work together, and we have to recognize what the League of Minnesota Cities had said. They said we didn't know our lanes. We need to operate as a board, not down in the weeds and micromanage, and that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. We need to step back and let our administrator do the work that she's been hired to do, let our staff do their work, and we need to sit back and operate solely as a board. That will solve all of our problems. When we have council members writing staff reports and fighting with staff whether they're going to take responsibility for someone's work, it's just, that's where we're running into issues, that's where we're running into problems with the league.
Thank you. Additional comments, anyone? Mr. Roth?
Yeah, I think Mr. Blair mentioned my piece. I wouldn't refer to it as an attack piece necessarily, but rather just trying to educate everybody about things that maybe not everyone knows, what we're telling our investors about how we'll develop. Mr. Blair said earlier that we tell them, we paint a rosy picture, but the reality is that you can really get in trouble if you are misleading your investors. There's been a number of SEC investigations these past 4 years for municipal bond fraud. A number of cities have faced fines, and I just want to make sure everybody knows what their vision for development really is.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Blair?
Sure. So now we go from rapid growth to not growing enough in municipal bond fraud. As far as not getting personal, here's another one. This is your website, Mr. Roth. You took and juxtaposed Mayor Pearson's nameplate with a headline that was taking place 40 seconds later. That's getting personal, and that's getting personal really fast, and not being honest and transparent with the residents of Lake Elmo.
Mr. Emmons.
I think it's, to Christine's comment earlier, I have reached out and tried to set up a time to get to know more where she stands on things like growth, because I think that is very important. So I also would ask that maybe you don't assume that I will have certain stances and toe the line or be in a certain block, which you seemed to infer a minute ago. So I'm trying to would like to get to know you and where your stance is on the important issues. And I think we should be more issue-based and not more personality-based and trying to pick fights with each other. So I think we can do much better on that. I think we are going to have disagreements. I think when we're talking
Your time is
about...
up. Thank you. Ms. Nelson.
Mr. Roth failed to mention that I was also mentioned in that flyer, and I don't think that's an education piece when you don't actually research the subject you're writing about and you misrepresent it. Again, I'll reiterate, he has never spoken to me and never asked me my opinion on growth, never made an effort to look into that. So I would prefer to have some documentation of that, or even a conversation. That would be great. And I'm not inferring it. I'm actually just, like the rest of the concerned citizens out here, you do have a lot of ties in the past and currently to the council majority. I'm concerned.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that is our last question, and we will now go to closing statements. And we'll begin with Mr. Roth.
Yeah, I guess I will address Ms. Nelson's comments. There's no flyer that has her name in it that I'm aware of. If you have it, you guys can surely share it with me. I know the website. Maybe on the website I mentioned, but certainly not a flyer. And Mr. Bloyer, that article, or what you're pointing to, is superimposed. That was directly from the KSTP website, so nothing unusual there. But do want to say that I'm excited about the opportunity to commit myself to the Lake Elmo City Council, and hopefully we can find our way through all of this that we're dealing with.
Thank you. Now with your closing statements, Christine Nelson.
If I could, my name was mentioned, and that is for anybody to see. But I want to thank you all again for allowing me to participate. I'd like to say that I'm no different than any of you who have been concerned by what you've seen in the last 22 months and are disappointed and concerned over what happened when a new majority came in, took control, and essentially paralyzed our government and systematically dismantled our reputation. But they didn't break our spirit, and that's clear to me. And with every person I am meeting out when I'm door knocking or going to meet and greets, this is a community that is very engaged and very active, and that is very encouraging. And I think there's a very bright, positive future ahead, a new day ahead for Lake Elmo. Having said that, I sincerely believe that we have it within our power to turn the negativity of the last 2 years into a positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett Emmons.
I think we have an opportunity before us to, in the next few years, next 5 years, determine what our community looks like 50 years from now. I think this is very important. I think there are, with good reason, there are people that feel strongly about this, and I do happen to disagree on some issues of our path forward. I'm an independent person. I look at things very analytically. I'm not someone's cow-tied person, or however that was put. But I think we need to focus back on the big issues that are facing us and how to accomplish intelligent, balanced growth, and do that within the character and the creativity that our community provides us and our homes that we have brought up our kids in. I think I bring a lot of important skills to the council, a very level-headed, calm type of demeanor that like to work together with people collaboratively. As I said, you can ask people I've worked with in the past. Integrity, an analytical way of looking at things. And I think we can use some creativity to harness our development pressure and really do something special. So I think those are some areas where we need to focus and spend less of our time bickering about what was said last meeting or last month or last year.
Thank you. Closing statement from Justin Bloyer.
Thank you. Residents of Lake Elmo, I ask you give Mayor Pearson, Christine Nelson, and myself the opportunity to institute the suggestions from the League of Minnesota Cities they feel will restore a comfortable workplace for city employees free from the specter of fear and intimidation and protect us from employment suits around every corner. We must make transparency a paramount concern of our government and return Lake Elmo to where it was just 2 short years ago. A welcoming, open government where citizens could delve into as much detail as they wished with regards to what their government is doing. Restoration of the idea of civility is a must for the elected officials of Lake Elmo. The civility of today reminds me of the saying, "The beatings will continue until morale improves." We have elected officials who fail to lead by example, but call out some nebulous policy instituted to show that they did something. We need leaders who will lead by example. Look at any meeting in my first 2 years of my tenure, and you'll see how real leading and behavior is exemplified. Finally, the rob Peter to pay Paul philosophy of the majority is reminiscent of the Social Security lockbox hijacking in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. We thank the candidates for participating tonight, Valley Access Channel 16 for covering this event, the City of Stillwater for the use of this facility, our league volunteers, and you, the audience, for your attendance and interest. Remember to vote on November 8th. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.